don't know.
Sorry, it's a bit like a massive...
Yeah, like now I have to like know everything. No.
So, where are we in history right now?
My name is Matthías Sigurðsson, and I'm a musician. I play the clarinet, and I compose songs and music often for theatre, but also my own songs. Here I'm going to perform my solo set. Like challenging myself, like clarinetistically, vocally, lyrically, and production-wise, and finding interesting blends between acoustic sounds and electronic sounds. I really love to like sample my clarinet in a really kind of weird way, like, I don't know, a vibrato that is cut halfway through, and then sample that and play it as a synth together with the actual live clarinet, and blend these things together so that you lose a bit like the like where does acoustic and nature begin, and like man-made electronic computer, and yeah, so I'm really trying to figure those things out. But that's also just the medium, but I'm also like really interested in just songs and harmony, and I tend to just grab the things that are in front of me, which is my clarinet and my computer, and I use them to try to, yeah, just get my message across. Topic-wise, it stays, yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, it goes from 2 years back until now, and the lyrics are reflecting different moments, snapshots in time then, but the lyrics for me are like usually not the focus point in the music. Also, when I listen to music, I tend to be fascinated by textures and harmony, and that's also usually the starting point for me, except the occasional case where I have this brilliant idea of it has to be this lyric and the song comes, but mostly I'm starting with a feeling, and the feeling is often related to how I'm feeling at that point, and then the lyrics come in and they create tensions and dissonances with the textures. Yeah. Tonight I have my clarinet that is going through a microphone into my computer, as well as my voice going through a microphone into the computer, and I tend to do things like make a loop with my clarinet, and then I play a beat on top of it, and then sing a song with some chords, and for now I've come up with some solutions of a few layers are playing back in the background, and I've spent ages orchestrating the backgrounds so that they have space for a few live things to happen at each time. So I have a keyboard where sometimes I'm playing bass lines or chords or samples, and a drum pad where I can drum in beats or trigger samples, and my computer, yeah, I think that's it, yeah. So my background is completely classical music. I mean, I grew up in a family of musicians. Both my parents are classical musicians, and they put me, well, I went to study classical music from age 7, and did really well in classical music. And by the age of 20, when I was finishing school in Iceland, I was already playing solos with orchestras, and it felt like my momentum was that I was going to become a classical soloist clarinet player. Although, yeah, I was already from age 14 interested in other music styles, playing-wise. On the clarinet I was playing Balkan and klezmer and jazz. I had this kind of weird jazz punk band, punk jazz Balkan something, and I had also a Balkan band. But all those things got kind of left behind when I moved to Amsterdam to study classical music, and I started missing it at a certain point, and I started missing being more creative, and reading and interpreting wasn't really enough for me as a creative artist. It didn't fulfill me. I couldn't spend all my time just practicing the scales and the pieces that everybody is doing, because my time just had to be also spent on creating, and therefore I just sort of like eventually started turning more to composition, composing my songs and adding some electronics, I taught myself that, and eventually I was hardly practicing the clarinet anymore, even though I was at that point started my masters in classical clarinet. So it was a logical thing was to switch to live electronics for me at that point, and because I wanted to use the clarinet and I wanted to use electronics and I wanted to learn more about electronics, and that's what I did. I learned more about electronics and tried to use the school to sort of support me as much as I could. I tried to handpick as much teaching. I wanted composition lessons, I wanted somebody to teach me production, and but eventually the things that are staying with me the most now are the things that I've taught myself, production-wise and style-wise. I'm just picking so many, I'm not like consciously picking, but like I take from such a broad spectrum of influences, like classical to Balkan to hip-hop to all over the place somehow. And that's not something that they teach you, it's just my interests. I feel there's so much missing in the education to like give that as a standard element in every musician's education, and I would sort of like to almost like preach that, just like make stuff, try to like work with people where you can be involved creatively, because it's going to give you so much. I think if you go like way back, hundreds of years, then you'd have musicians who were composing and performing, and you'd have performers and composers working together very creatively, and I think, but somehow the classical music world and probably other music worlds as well, jazz and pop, have developed into a specialization. To some extent you kind of have to be specialized to sell yourself as a product, but also it can also be killing to just be pushed into a specialized field if you are not a specialized person. And we have access to everything, all musics of every single period, of every single place in the world. If it's been put on the internet, we can access that. So I think we are also maybe in a way privileged that we can just be inspired from any period. I think I take a lot of inspiration from nature, for instance. Like not only nature, but being somewhere where you just like feel that it's challenging you. You're being challenged by the crazy cold wind, or from like the swimming in ice cold sea, or you are like have an amazing view over like crazy landscapes, and you just like feel this is also life. This is like it's running in me, and I'm part of it. And it sort of just like I can just go from there. I'm just like, bruh, I'm just gonna do something, and whatever it is, it's gonna be at least have some kind of momentum or something. Watching dance can be very inspiring, and dancing can be really inspiring. Or improvising, for instance, with maybe a computer with some effects, something, and they happen to be like respond in a way that you didn't expect them to, and then suddenly, whoop, you get a spark of an idea because it came from the outside. It wasn't like you hadn't thought it, so something like surprises you, and you're like, oh wow, great idea, I'm going to do that. So things that kind of surprise you or like come from the outside of your own little tunnel vision brain. Hearing sometimes people talk also about their own struggles, then you also like, no, you're not the only one. It is supposed to be like this, or it is like at least it is like this for many others. I would describe my ears as open but delicate. And you can interpret that any way you want.